Ekuleo. That would be a proper greeting in my Yoruba language. The idea is to indicate that I'm saying I'm back home. So thank you, Director, for that wonderful introduction. I'm here today not to speak about my own research, but more to introduce to us one of the best artisans from Ghana, so in person of Eric Adjetey. And that's the reason why we are having this project. The project is an ongoing one. It's about afterlife, death and burial ceremonies in West African cultures. Why are we talking about death and why are we talking about the afterlife? So we're talking about these two, especially this past month, when I have to, most of us, we remembered one of us, who was also a faculty member here, Professor Tejumola Olaniyan. So I had thought that this, presentation will come up in November, but again, it's still good. He died on November 30th, 2019, and we are still in the period, that week of celebrating his achievements while here on Earth. So when we talk about death and living are synchronous terms in many West African cultures. What I want to do is just to foreground what we are doing, lay the theoretical foundation of what Eric is going to be speaking to, and I'm going to spend just about 10 minutes. And then Eric will come up and then talk to us more about the politics and the poetics of coffin making in Ghana. So, and what they carry as symbolic elements. Death and living are synchronous terms in many West African cultures, with one signifying the continuation of the other. For example, among the Yorubas of Nigeria and the Gas of Ghana, death is not a terminal verdict, nor the expiration of a human being as an entity. Instead, death signifies the termination or expiration of a mortal body, which is a necessity or a necessary rite of passage into the afterlife. The afterlife is a realm of existence outside the corporeal body. It is a spiritual manifest of apotheosis. Thus, the afterlife speaks to the richness of Yoruba and Ga's poetic of transition and emblematically recenters the liturgy of death and dying, as well as the specific ways Yorubas and the Gas symbolize the continuity of life. In this instance, as a rite of passage, the afterlife balances the continuity of life, and in that order, specific burial rites and ceremonies that must happen for smooth transitioning into the great beyonds are always highlighted. The prayer is that one does not die young, but one sleeps and do not wake up at a ripe age. This is so because burial ceremonies are social events and spiritual performances that speak to the glory and candor of aging. So to age in the Yoruba culture, in the Ga culture, is itself a grace from God, and that is celebrated because dying is seen as a rite of passage into the afterlife. And therefore, death as a tragedy is rendered in celebratory terms to depict the newness it brings. Death brings newness. And on this, the newness stems from the belief that the afterlife is a realm of rest, where individuals become ancestors. And so, in the hierarchy of power and social stratification, to become an ancestor underscores a promotion to the highest level of veneration human beings can achieve, which is a step below the status of God and goddesses. Therefore, in a transformative term, death is not a tragedy per se, but a transition from one realm to another. However, not all deceased souls become ancestors. While individuals who die young don't become ancestors, they are believed to turn into restless spirits that roam around the world, looking for fulfillment. At the same time, elderly individuals must pass the rite of passage test before they too are venerated as ancestors. Therefore, the afterlife is not a given, it must be earned. Consequently, various ceremonies and rites are significant to deceased souls seeking recognition in the afterlife. What this means is you just don't die to become an ancestor even at a ripe age. You have to pass through that rite of passage. The labyrinth of death brings about a new form of newness, but that newness is status conferred. Not every individual who dies at a ripe age becomes an ancestor if there is no proper burial ceremony for them. In the cosmology of the Yoruba people and the Ga people, departed individuals on the journey to the afterlife are required to declare their worth at the entrance into the afterlife. And the most recognized worth instrument is the loudness of music and social performances recorded at the burial ceremony of the deceased. To enter into the afterlife is not about your earthly status. And this is where many people kind of think about royalty. On earth, you can be royalty because you are born into a royal household, but in the afterlife, you can secure royalty or you can become an important figure in the afterlife based on the fact that you had many children on earth who gave you a proper burial. So royalty in the afterlife is not only conferred on individuals because they are from royal bloodlines, but because they've been buried properly by their children. And that is the reason Yorubas will say, "En your must sin lo bimo," that is, he who is given a proper and befitting burial is the one who has given birth to children. In that order, to procreate is not necessarily enough, but at the end of the day, it's important that the children are able to give befitting burials to their parents and to their loved ones when they pass away. So, the departed soul is believed to stay longer on earth until they are buried. So, if no proper burial is accorded to a deceased parent, he or she can, in turn, begin to harm the children or the relatives until they conduct a befitting burial. It is for this reason that the Yorubas coined a proverb, to die, it is better to die a toddler than grow old without a proper burial rite. So it will not be considered a loss if one should die at a younger age than for them to die at a ripe age and just to be discarded without any proper or befitting burial. So to enter into the afterlife, burial ceremonies are very important, and they are ritual elements that are part of the social events that signify being buried, but at the same time, so it is a necessity to go into the afterlife and to possess the afterlife as a bona fide member of the afterlife. Consequently, many cultures in West Africa, that is in this case, the Yorubas and the Gas of Ghana, spare no expenses in burying their deceased. Thus, the ceremonial attitude towards burial rites is an indication of pleasing the departed soul and buying their passage into the afterlife. As a result of that, expensive caskets, elaborate parting, and lavish material display of wealth are normative performances of status recognition and class. If one recognizes that burial ceremonies are, in quote, a kind of a sent-forth party for the deceased, one will also come to terms with the desires that coffins can represent, especially those personal desires that were never fulfilled. In the rite of passage, the conveyor of the deceased is important. The container that conveys the deceased to the afterlife is very important. And this is what Wole Soyinka tried to achieve in the play, Death and the King's Horseman, by trying to show the transitioning from the realm of the living to the realm of the ancestor. There's a rite of passage in which, through pomp and pageantry, an individual can be sent forth into the afterlife, because that is important and is emblematic of their status here on earth and the status to be conferred on them in the afterlife. Therefore, coffins, caskets, are more than containers for burying dead people. They signify intentions and aspirations, whether lived or forfeited. Coffins are symbolic burial elements that reflect status and social hierarchy. And it's at this juncture that I invite my co-presenter, Eric Adjetey, a third-generation coffin maker, to speak about the fantasy coffins of Ghana. Please welcome with me, Eric. No, next video.
Next video, yeah. My name is Mark Sloan, and I am the guest curator of an exhibition for the Museum of International Folk Art in Santa Fe, New Mexico. The exhibition is called The Art Underground, Fantasy Coffins of Ghana. In a small village in Ghana, north of the capital city of Accra, is a town called Teshie, where this unique folk art form called fantasy coffins has developed. They're alternatively known as design coffins, or as they're known in the local dialect, Ga, Abebu Adeki, or boxes of proverbs. And the Ga funeral ritual is quite an elaborate affair, where the deceased is often buried in a coffin that is in the shape of something either having to do with their occupation, their interests, or something having to do with their stature in the community. So in the case of the funeral that you're looking at now, this is of a 96-year-old chief who is being buried in a coffin that is in the shape of a key, which is the symbol for his clan. The fantasy coffin tradition began in the late 1950s with the carpenter named Kane Kwei in Teshie. He was hired to create a palanquin for a local chief to carry him through the streets, and it was going to be in the shape of a cacao pod. And the chief died before the procession began, and the community decided to bury him in the palanquin, transforming the palanquin into a coffin, and therein began the tradition. So since that time, artists in the area started building coffins in all sorts of shapes. This exhibition is looking at this phenomenon from a variety of perspectives and involving scholars from all over the world who are contributing to the knowledge about this tradition. Working at the Kane Kwei Workshop are a number of apprentices, many of whom go on to open up their own coffin shops. They create these coffins working with the clients to come up with designs that are reflective of the life of the individual to be buried. One of the beliefs of the Ga people is the importance of the transition between the world of the living and the world of the ancestors. The vessel that is used to carry the deceased from one world to the other is a very important aspect of this ritual. So the fantasy coffins are a way to essentially go in style. Fantasy coffins are used primarily for people of considerable stature in the community, revered individuals. They're rarely used for younger people, but usually used for older people. These coffins have a dual nature. They are used both as coffins to bury the dead in Ghana, and they are also have caught the attention of the international art community and have been shown in museums and galleries throughout the world. Working with Kane Kwei's grandson, Adjetey Anang, who is the consultant on the project and the director of the Kane Kwei Carpentry Workshop today, we are putting together an exhibition that will travel in the United States for several years, will consist of roughly 24 commissioned coffins made by the Kane Kwei Workshop, as well as Pa Joe and Hello. Pa Joe was an apprentice to Kane Kwei and has grown to become the most famous and widely collected fantasy coffin maker in history. One of his star apprentices, Hello, has himself become a revered figure in this rarefied world of coffin makers. This exhibition includes historical works by Kane Kwei, along with coffins by his son, Adjetey Anang, and grandson, Adjetey Anang, along with important works by former apprentice Pa Joe and his apprentice Hello. The Art Underground exhibition tangibly demonstrates the origins of the fantasy coffin tradition emanating out of the Kane Kwei Workshop and traces its evolution through 2 generations of his own family, as well as through the rigorous apprenticeship program Kwei started, which continues to this day. The exhibition will explore this dual nature of the coffins, both as funeral objects as well as art objects. The objects that we will be showing in the museum will obviously be ones that would be for the international art trade. We hope you will join us for this exciting voyage exploring the origins and evolution of this unique tradition of Ghanaian fantasy coffins.
Hi, everyone. So I'm here more to describe, what actually happens, during the process. So usually when, on an occasion when somebody needs a coffin, so let's say during the week, somebody passes away in the family. The family would visit, let's say it's on a Monday or Tuesday or something. Usually they will first hold like a first meeting, which happens on Sunday where everybody's at home. And on Monday, the next Monday, the family will show up in the shop and then would describe the occupation of the deceased. So through that, I can determine what I have to make for the deceased. So somebody may show up and tell me, hey, our father was a cocoa farmer. We have this idea of, making a cocoa pot or something. So I would ask them, like where they're coming from and if there's been a cocoa pot or something there before. So through that, I can decide what I want to make. So I won't just make the cocoa pot, but, kind of make something similar to what the person does. So once they show up and we talk about the design, I have a period of 2 weeks to a month to prepare the coffin. So during this period, the body will be kept in the morgue. And I will be putting pieces together to construct the coffin. The family picks up the coffin, let's say, in 1 month time, and they have a period of 4 days for the ceremony. So it starts on Thursday. That is when they present the coffin to the family. On Friday, the body is being laid for people to, for the wakekeeping. And then on Saturday, the burial takes place. On Sunday, that is where we kind of have like some sort of Thanksgiving. So we go to the church if the person is a Christian. After that, we come and then we have a party at home. So that's pretty how we kind of, the ceremony kind of happens. So I'm going to kind of show some of the few design. Okay, so that is Kane Kwei, my grandfather, the one who started the whole idea of design coffins. He passed away in 1992. And he was succeeded by my father and the brother. My uncle died in 2000, and actually it was only my dad working. So I joined my dad in 2005. So I started making coffin full-time in 2005. So this was the whole idea of the coffins before. I mean, they were palanquins. That's what the chiefs ride in. And this is usually commonly among the Gans. So the Gan chiefs usually ride in palanquins in the form of animals. It could be eagle, cocoa pod, whatever. So that was the shop in 1992. And then this was in 2009. Trying to okay, let me go back and start. I won't do all the pictures, but just a few ones. So usually a family shows up in the shop and they tell me, the deceased is the head of a clan. So they would describe, what kind of a symbol represent the clan. So this is a coffin in the shape of a reindeer that I made for a family member. So these are also some status that I wouldn't make, it is not common. So a family shows up and they would ask me if I could make a coffin in the form of a tiger or something. In this case, I really have to, kind of question the family if they are from the royal family. I mean, if the deceased is from the royal family. If not, I might have to refuse making it because this is these are symbols that represent, chiefs. So we have the snail and the tortoise, which I would usually make for more like a chief or a lawyer, somebody who would, kind of solve problems, but that actually takes time. So we kind of represent them with the tortoise and then the snail. And then the symbol of the chili. So the color actually represent the symbol of temperament. This is also another design that is very controversial. So we make the mother hen, and they would usually tell us the number of children the woman has. So this is usually for a woman. So the number of chicks we have under the woman represent the number of children the woman has. And in this case, somewhere in Africa, this is where we practice polygamy. So it becomes very controversial, very controversial. Let's say the woman has, 3 children before getting married to, like a man who has 2 children. Some people might be expecting us to put 5 chicks under it. Some might be expecting us to put 3. So it becomes very controversial if we put 5 because the family of the lady wouldn't want us to put the other 2 from the man. So it becomes like a very odd issue, like it's a back and forth, and sometimes they might end up refusing the coffin. So then they can postpone the ceremony. So this guy happens to be like a footballer and also a Christian. So the family showed up and they were like, we don't want a design coffin. We just want a coffin, but something that represents his profession. So in that case, I have to bring up the idea of, putting the football kind of on them. Up until like 2010, you hardly meet people who comes to say they want a coffin in the shape of a Bible because they believe, in the video you saw the slaughtering of the animal on the coffin. the Christians believe it's against their religion. So they wouldn't want us to do, all these designs for them up until like 2012, 2015, it started changing. So, you would see people come in. And so it actually changed from, having 1 or 2 in a year to maybe like 10 to 15 in a year of Bible. And then also like the church building. I usually put this picture because this is the fish commonly found on the coast of Accra, the redfish. But I did put the ray fish because one time I had a family that showed up, and they had actually ordered a coffin somewhere, but they didn't get it right on time, and they didn't like the design. So they showed up like a week before the ceremony and asked me to create something, like within that week. So I asked them, like, what are you thinking? And they said they want the ray fish. It took me 3 to 5 days to finish this coffin. I had to do the construction, and then the painting had to take 2 days. So that became, one of the unique coffins that I have ever done, because usually most of the designs that I do takes between 2 weeks to a month. Yeah, we have the nurses. So these, up until 1992, these were the kind of trucks we used to, the means of transport in Ghana. They were banned in 1992, but this was the only way we could transport, goods and stuff from the villages. And most of the written words were kind of like the nicknames of the drivers. So I did a work with an anthropologist from Santa Fe, and we were kind of, interviewing the drivers, and, they have these songs that they use, their horns in creating. So we have the pom-pom music that, so I usually put it as part of my collection. So this is the wooden hand plan. And I made a coffin in this form, but at the same time, kind of like something I could display like my stuff on, but it's a coffin. And I actually made that because when people usually ask me what, kind of a coffin I would love to go with, I think this is going to be my coffin. Yeah. I think, do we have much? Okay. Yeah, let's go down. Okay. Okay. So usually, this is how we kind of start the whole thing. So they show up, they tell me what they want. I usually try to find like a prototype of what they want, and then I kind of build from that. So I'm going to show how I do the construction. Actually, this I did here in Madison. I'm in UW. And so that was actually my first time working here. And I didn't have any idea of the painting here. So I'm usually used to the in oil paint. So I tried using what was the paint? Milk paint, yeah. And it kind of didn't work really well for us. So we had to kind of grind the whole thing down. And I think I got the help of you. And that was the finishing we got. Also, this is how the inside looks like. I kind of have to put in like a very light tin foam and then decorate the inside with the satin fabric. The satin, because it holds, it absorbs the foam, and then the satin kind of absorbs the water coming from the deceased body, because the body is usually frozen. So during this period, it kind of melts in there. So this, so now I live here in the US, and I kind of go back and forth. In the video, that is a project I'm doing. So every year I kind of go to Ghana 2 to 3 times. So I build the coffins there and then bring them here. Me living here, if I have to make the coffins, they're definitely not going to be for burials. It's either for a museum or for an exhibition or something. So one thing I've started doing is building this coffin to kind of send messages. This was to address the issue of gun violence in the US. I've also done one talking about how garbages are being disposed in Ghana. There is also one about the bees. I don't know if I have that picture here, but yeah. So this is a bee, and in Ghana, how they kind of disappearing because of the weedy sites and, you know, the grass and everything. That should be it. I currently don't have this shop again. I did started a new shop in Kumasi, but it was really hard for me to kind of deal with it from here. So I kind of gave up, but I only have the one in Accra. So should be it. Do we have more time? 5 minutes. We can do questions. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm sure folks have lots of questions.
Okay.
Do you want to go started?
Yoruba saints are well alive in Brazil. This is Yemanja, Ogun, and so on. I wonder what are the details on the sorts of afterlife and so on carry on and still maintained there? That I don't know.
Please could you rephrase the question? I can't hear what you have afterlife. So what's the question? Please can you rephrase?
He asks for you to
Traditions.
Oh, the question.